Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hope you're doing well. So, let's talk about the front man in Squid Game. Now, in Season 1 and Season 2, his character has a really unique shift. In the first season, we get to see that he's the one behind the scenes, a literal front man. And we kind of look at him as super evil. Who's this monster that has this weird disposition, right? But in Season 2, we get to see him on the ground in the game. And them participating in the game is quite unique because they're getting up close and personal with those who will soon be eliminated. And you would think they would form these special bonds with each player, feel bad, and shut the whole thing down. But no, they keep going, don't they? So, and note that the front man had player number 1, like the old man did in Season 1. One unique thing that I wrote down here that I want to make sure I touch on is that he watches on a large screen in his private quarters, and he has this very strange, soothing, mechanical, it's not a puppet, but it's some type of mechanical singing jazz. I think it's jazz. Either way, smooth music. And he seems to like his hard liquor. And the other officer who wears black, he also has, drinking hard liquor. For some reason, hard liquor is seen as like a graceful refreshment for men, kind of like how red wine is also. So you notice that he likes to drink, get a little buzz on, and watch people die. Now, is that a bit cliche? I would argue yes. Why? Because Hannibal Lecter with Anthony Hopkins already did that. And see, music, if you put thug rap and people are getting blasted, you're like, oh, typical. If you put epic music, orchestral epic music that's used in military combat music or Game of Thrones or Gladiator or Pirates of the Caribbean, Hans Zimmer, you'll see this type of like action. It's has a different vibe to it. But with horror, you can go back in some of the vintage horror films. Having the classical denotes a refinement. When something is operatic. And you'll notice when the people wake up in their bunk beds, they have classical music playing. Right? And they're doing anything but being refined. So that contrast of hyper violence with refined music is supposed to create a unique chemistry that kind of unnerves you. But I would argue that that voice they did, like like when you see the soldiers walking, that's more of a unique, conspicuous type of, I don't know if you can call it vocals mixed with music, but it's more you haven't heard any other show do it. But having smooth, relaxing music to things of horror, it's been done a lot. But I also understand they don't just want to do the standard like scary music as someone gets chopped up. Think of the movie Halloween with Michael Myers. I think that was his name. He wore a white mask. It was a vintage movie that my grandma and we all used to watch during Halloween when I was young. That music is iconic, and when you hear it, you know exactly what movie it's from. See, they made their own very unique soundtrack, and you're like, okay, that works. So I would argue, could a horror angle that Squid Game could do, it could be less about the music, more about the sounds coming up, or they could break out of the box of music. But again, music is so embedded in the culture, it's a way to set you in the mood, And so when you have the music not sitting you in the mood of the scene, it creates a sort of disconnect there that makes you more intrigued and confused and keeps you more engaged with what's on screen. So I understand the media tactic that they use for entertainment. But he has a large screen, and he doesn't turn away, he doesn't shy away, but also he does go down into the main room where you see other soldiers sitting in their desks, and they're watching camera angles, and they have other little things that they do. And there's like 2 big screens. The floor is also lit up with what players have been eliminated. So he's very invested, he's very observant, okay? And the front man, we have noticed, does get his hands dirty. He does punish soldiers when they mess up. Zero tolerance. So he has a sort of equality there. He's not going to be like, oh, you're a soldier, so therefore I'm going to be nice to you because you're not one of these degenerate, in-debt people here playing. No, if you recall, in Season 1, you know, one of the soldiers removing his mask. You're not supposed to reveal identities, and you're supposed to keep yourself anonymous, anonymity. And he just cold-blooded, systematically, ruthlessly puts them down, right? Pumps them full of holes. And you can respect that kind of a villain who doesn't really have this sort of absurd favoritism, although we do have that unique weak angle where his brother's the cop, he lets his brother shoot him. His brother also gets shot, falls into the ocean. I think he knew his brother wasn't going to die. He don't want his brother to die. And as we can see, if I recall from Season 1, his brother did participate in the games, because remember, he opened a file. And so we have a clue as to what he went through. And remember, in Season 2, the cop, he goes to the memorial for his sister-in-law, right? And so we also learned that the kidney transplant between those two, and how the mom is really affected by not hearing from her son. So clearly he's changed, and who changed him and why, right? Because from what we have seen, when you win the game, you're supposed to like go on, but he became a front man. Did someone see potential in him? What was it? We don't know yet. We don't know his origin story, okay? And what I also liked about him is he's habitual. And as someone who's habitual myself, I put things in the same place in a certain way a lot of the times. And in Season 1, when he puts the phone down, he puts it down, the receiver, the old-fashioned phones. He puts it the same way all the time. Now, when his brother, the cop, comes in, he puts it the other way. And so he gets the clue that someone's been in his quarters, trying to dial out. But he can't, no one can dial out. That's not the way that phone works. And so we see that he has also a mathematical angle. When they're on that carousel game, like it's spinning. I think it's one of the coolest ones because you don't know how many numbers are coming up, and he's good at mathematical pattern recognition, which some denote as a high IQ. However, since he knows the games, we can assume that he knew this one was coming up. We're not exactly sure if the front man knows exactly which games are going to be played, and even if he knows how the games are played, he still has to actually be on the winning side, right? He actually has to he's risking his life, no doubt. He still has to be tough about it. And recall, in that carousel game, he gets ruthless as well. A guy's hiding in there, and then he has to strangle him. So, because remember, there's cameras in the room, and the door can be locked from the inside from the other players, but there's a opening where the soldiers can put their weapon inside and discharge it. And there's cameras in there, so the people who are watching the other soldiers, they can say, hey, room so-and-so has this many people. You can't really outsmart them. And so, if he... I made myself a nice iced maple macadamia nut latte. If he was able to just get off scot-free, he wouldn't have needed to kill that individual. But he also doesn't want to blow his cover. Because if you remember Ohilnam, the old man, who was one of the head-ups, higher than our front man, when he was playing the marble game, he's one of the very last to leave that area, and he goes into one of those little, it's like a little fence and stuff, and he goes into one of those quarters to where people can hear the shot, but they can't verify that person is dead, right? And so they know they have to execute the old man in season 1 out of sight of others. Now, the front man was in that room, season 2. If he's in there and the soldiers don't blast him like everyone else, it's going to raise eyebrows. And remember, the game is about equality. The game is about everyone having a fair chance, knowing the rules, and the rules applying to everyone. So, that was important to the front man, especially in season 1. So, of course, he's going to keep that up in season 2. So there's a lot of mystery around this front man. And then further, I also wrote here that he has to keep the VIPs safe. These are ballers. And I really hope that the season does a good job on showing us how filthy rich these are. If these are millionaires, if these are people as rich as just a commoner, then the game doesn't lose that sort of bizarreness. I think they need to have the people like super wealthy, like King Charles type of wealth, or oil tycoons type of wealth. You know, people who are high up on the ladder of privilege and bourgeoisie refined tastes. Because you see their weirdness in season 1 when they have the painted animal, like humans painted like animals, and the masks they wear, and the soft robes, and the private catering. You can see that there's not too many people allowed. And if you think of the logistics of security, how much funding it takes, well, they do bet also, but it takes a lot of funding for the electricity, keeping everything anonymous, hiring and vetting the right people, being able to carry out assassin missions, buying all those bullets, buying all those firearms. They have a lot of supplies. Who's making the clothes, right? The uniforms for the players. Think about all this of how much it takes financially just to run those games. So they can't be charging low prices. You know, they can't just be like, $2 million you're in. I highly doubt that. Because then they would let in the riffraff, and eventually a drunken millionaire is going to mention what's happened, and they're going to get raided by the government. And the security on the island has no signals. They have a lot of... Remember the booby trap that they also showed us, where that Delta Force, or what should we call them? The hired arms that Song Gi-yoon got. They went on the island. They opened this hatch. Explosion. Okay? You can see some fishes going on, and the fisherman boat guy is getting a little nervous. Is he a double agent? Does he know the front man? Okay? The front man is also smart enough to know that there's a tracker probably inside Song Gi-yoon's mouth. The front man is the one who let Song Gi-yoon back in the game. And why did Song Gi-yoon do this? Did he do it himself? Did he do it to show where he stands in the organization? And remember, Song Gi-yoon even mentions to the front man when he's in the car, the back of that limousine, talking to the golden pig, that the VIPs will love a person re-entering into the games. So the front man clearly wants to please the VIPs. This means a more consistent money flow. So we can see the angle of the front man. He has a vested interest in keeping the games going. And remember, season 1, he was in All Hilnam's, the old man's hospital room, that elite fancy hospital room. I don't know exactly what you call it, but when you have a certain type of financial status, you can have these very nice, comfortable hospital type of care rooms, and he was there. So clearly he has a close relationship. And what did the old man say to the front man about Sung-Gi-Yoon? Because remember, the old man called Sung-Gi-Yoon that word for like good buddies, and he made the old man's experience enjoyable. Did the front man also want to have this experience? Because he gets down and close, face to face with Sung-Gi-Yoon, and maybe he's seen so many different players, so many aspects of human evil, of what humans do to each other, that he became numb and he wants to see, okay, does Sung-Gi-Yoon really want to be the hero? Because remember, when he pulls off that trick where he blasts the other 2 players when they're pretending to go raid the upper offices, he pretends to be dead and all that, but he goes on his walkie-talkie and says, okay, let's wrap this up. So clearly he had a plan, and he told others about this plan. And did the VIPs also enjoy watching the front man playing the games? Did they know it was him? Do they know what he looks like behind the mask? Right? There's something to that. We have a lot of questions going on, which makes the character of the front man more mysterious, more engaging, more niche. Because when you write a villain, he's got to be unique. Because people have lost the art of writing villains. And what is unique about our villain here is he's a literal manager. He gets his hands dirty. He's obviously cunning and intelligent and dedicated. Because remember, when they went to go find the cop before, he was going with the soldiers and really trying to find this guy. You know, he keeps things going, keeps things in line. Now, does the front man, because he grants permission for for Sung-Gi-Yoon to go back, does he also have a hand in who gets to be part of the soldiers? Is there a different vetting process for soldiers versus players? Right? How much does the front man send out the salesman who, remember, he did Russian roulette and blasted himself? How much does he do? Okay, so he's like the manager. That's one of the manager of the Squid Games. And that's a heavy burden. A heavy burden, because if someone on the island escapes, if someone opens their mouth, you're donezo. And remember, he also participated in this military coup, this sort of revolution. I wonder if the front man allowed Sung-Gi-Yoon to get that far just so that he could learn how to prevent it from happening again. Right? Because it would have worked if they would have got more weapons, if they would have known where to go, if they wouldn't have ran out of ammo, if they would have gotten the rounds, the magazines from the soldiers' pockets in the beginning, right? And recall that the front man had mentioned in season 1, he has a file when, remember, they had the glass ladder, and there was a guy there who used to make glass. So the front man turns down the shade, he turns down the contrast, the lighting, he dims it, so the game becomes more fair and harder at the same time, though, right? He doesn't want the glass maker to have an advantage to let everyone go through, because he wants also the VIPs to be entertained. So did he, in this season, decide Sung-Gi-Yoon seems to be on the warpath. He's got money now. How do we see his brain more? How can I get to know him more on a personal level? Well, how better to do that than getting close through trauma bonding. And what's unique is some soldiers will say that they get really bonded to people they were in there, who they deployed with. They suffered life and death experiences with each other and survive. They have a strong bond. They open up to each other. Is the front man, was his strategy to kind of trauma bond with Song Gi-yeon to really get in his head so that he could perfect the logistics and security and operations of the Squid Games as a whole? That's my theory. And that's what makes him a unique villain, is because he's learning from someone who wants to destroy him. He's looking up in the face of the one who wants to destroy him, and he has patience. See, he's playing a long game. And that is unique, because if you were the front man and you had all this power, does the front man have a lot of money? Since I think he was the one in the file who we saw, winner of the games. I'm sure he's getting paid well to be the logistics guy. He ain't broke out here. He's not eating mac and cheese out of a box. He could have just paid the soldiers to take that guy out, but they kept him alive. He obeys the code. There must be some sort of code, because if they felt that Song Gi-yeon couldn't be persuaded, they could have just put him down. And remember, the front man used a speaker when being in the car, and this confused Song Gi-yeon. And they have the gas ready in the car as well. So he seems to have a lot of his corners tied up. He knows how to remove loose ends to trim them up. And so he's highly intelligent and cunning. And maybe that's another thing that led him to getting his position, because he knows the rules. He wants to enforce the rules. He follows the rules himself. And he seems to have that sort of practicality to him, with a sort of softness that can be very manipulative. Because when you saw him start to reason with Song Gi-yeon on why he voted the way he did, and he was like, what if I would have been the one that sent us all home? Those people see me in the street and they harm me. He's almost teaching Song Gi-yeon the other aspect and darkness of human psychology. Because Song Gi-yeon is trying to be some hero, right? He was a bum son, a bum father, a bum husband. And, you know, he's led a very poor life. But now all of a sudden he wants justice on those who gave him a chance to participate in the game, because he bonded with some of the players and he had to, you know, watch his close childhood friend shank himself in the neck in the ring, right? He was disturbed by that. But it was a free will democratic game. So his vengeance is very weird, because it was a game he chose to go to. It was a game he voted to be in when he first came in, right? Even though later he wants to go. So there's a lot of no accountability in Song Gi-yeon. And his sort of wishful thinking, his sort of sweetness, when he sees the players shanking each other, he sacrifices the X team and hides under the beds. And the front man tells him straight up, so you're saying we need to do what's for the greater good, essentially, right? I'm paraphrasing. And then Song Gi-yeon has this moral crisis, where if they don't go out and help the X's win, they're all going to be murked. Okay? They're going to be outnumbered next time the voting thing comes around. But Song Gi-yeon feels it's okay because it's worth the end, which is to make it up to the master's room, to the control room. And so I think the front man had a clever way of showing Song Gi-yeon he's not as immoral as he says, and that he bends his ethical code like any players in the game. I think the front man is showing Song Gi-yeon the different ethical codes to the game, and that those people, the winner especially, they have a chance to take the money to vote, but they choose to keep playing after they've seen the brutality of it. So whose fault is it really? You know? these people, when they were free out there in the world, they chose to gamble, to do all this stuff. The people who are there for medical debt and other reasons, you can feel sorry for them, but once they have signed the contract, once they have participated in the games, and they vote to stay, they know what's up. They know the risk. There's no more secrets. And so, I really think that the frontman is going to have a great arc if the writers keep up his cleverness, because he deserves a very grand, if he does die, he deserves a very grand death. Who will live? Sung-gyun or the frontman? You know, that's going to be interesting. Because I really hope that it's not always the good guy wins. Because shows like that are just lies. Because evil does win. Now on Judgment Day, as us as Muslims, they'll get their recompense. But there are times where evil does win. And if every movie just lies to us and tells us the good guys always get it, it's like, that's just not real. So hopefully they don't mess up the character, but thus far we can have a lot of respect for him. And the fact that his mask is different, he wears all black, you know, this is something to that. Something to that. And so we shall see, inshallah, what further ethical dilemmas he brings up. And the actor himself has done a great job in playing that character, playing that role. I think he was cast really well because he has a face where he doesn't look maniacal. When a character just looks really raw and evil, and they're playing an evil person, that can work sometimes, right? But with something like Squid Game, where there's more mystery, surprise, suspense, you know, things like that, you want a character who you ponder on, like, you don't really suspect that from them, right? And remember, Jung Bae, one of the friends, he almost was gonna reveal what the front man did, choking out that guy. And Jung Bae, he ends up dying because of Sung-gyun. And this is a very important lesson for Sung-gyun because he leads his friends to their death. And remember the conversation they had about the divorce he got and how Sung-gyun used to always go to him, nagging him for money, begging him for money. And the wife really didn't like Sung-gyun, thought he was a loser. So you can see how he hasn't been the greatest friend either. At all. And yet, he did the final thing of taking his dearest friend into a battle that didn't have great odds. And so the front man, I feel, has taught him a lesson. You know when to proceed in battle further. Know when to retreat. Know when you have the advantage. Know when you have the numbers. Because he led all those people to their death. And some of them got free. And we'll see how that plays out in the next one. So it's very fascinating. The costume design is well. I like it. I have heard some call him, you know, there's this sort of mysterious mode to him, and I agree with that. It's very clear. And hopefully, you know, they don't get super lazy with the writing. Let me know what you think. Would you want to be the front man in the Squid Game? I wouldn't. That's too much. Oh, you know, player did this, and, you know, soldier did that, and VIP's on the phone, and, you know, I can't do all that. That's too much for me. Too much. Take care. Until next time, please like, comment, subscribe, share, and join the blog. Bye-bye.